The roof was already falling in on the home at Northeast 50th and Taylor when city firefighters arrived. The owners weren't at home and the house was already engulfed when neighbors across the street discovered the blaze. The nearest fire station houses only brush pumpers, and the 1,000 gallons of water they carried could not extinguish the fire. Today, all that remains of the home is a charred and smoking foundation, less than a block away from a fire hydrant the city crews hadn't had time to repair. But Assistant Fire Chief Mowell says that the fire was reported too late for the house to have been saved.
Had the fire hydrant been sitting in the front yard and operating, it probably wouldn't have had a significant impact, especially when the house is totally involved, when our companies first arrive on the scene.
There isn't much fire and police departments can do to protect homes like this one in remote areas of Oklahoma City. They are, however, trying to improve those services. Unfortunately, that takes time, and time is the one factor that made them lose this particular house. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 in Northeast Oklahoma City. Okay,
Well-known local artist Patrick Riley was commissioned early this fall to begin work on dozens of party masks for Ballet Oklahoma's charity ball this Thursday night. Riley says he delights in creating his masks, drawing from pure imagination and reflections of life.
All of the masks are made after bird images, eagles, owls, hawks, some peacocks, and a few hummingbirds even. I love birds, and this is what I'm using as my theme for the making of the mask.
Patrick, why do you make masks?
I just like the mask. It's something that's fun. I see all kinds of people enjoying masks. Primitive people as well as socially elite people. All kinds of people all over the world enjoy them. So I make them basically for enjoyment.
The Design Center here in the city is temporarily housing the masks. Ballet patrons merely have to stop by and make their choice.
Any way you stretched it, we're not going to win any prizes.
I'm going to get a big hat to wear with mine with some ostrich feathers. What do you think?
1982's New Year's Eve mask ball will no doubt highlight Oklahoma City's frolic and festivities Thursday evening. But more importantly, the night's proceeds will go towards keeping Ballet Oklahoma financially sound in the new year. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
The search by firefighters was hampered by locked doors and a smoke-filled maze of hallways. One man working late in one of the businesses noticed the smoke and called the security guard, who called the fire department.
I smelled the smoke coming down. I stopped on each level on the way down, then I ran into Mr. Bob Orbox, and then to the guy cleaning the bar and grill. And we started coming down here, and that's when the fire department arrived. We're still trying to check out and see where it's coming from. With all the smoke and everything, it's hard to tell. It's hard to get through there. We're trying to get into the club now and find out if it's coming from there, possibly.
We got a lot of fire back there underneath the bar. Okay. Go right down this way and hang a right. Okay.
They found the fire in Pistachio's club. Damage was extensive, but no estimate is available yet, and fire officials are still investigating the cause. There were people working upstairs at a radio station, but no one was injured. Ted Brown, Action 4 at 50 Penn Place.
Buying a handgun in Oklahoma has always been easy. State residents with clean criminal records can pick up a pistol at nearly any sporting goods store or pawn shop in the state.
That's a nice gun down there.
Yeah, that's a nice piece.
But members of state gun lobbies fear all that could change. At least half a dozen Oklahoma towns have considered tightening restrictions on gun ownership in the past, and they fear the latest ruling will only fuel the gun control fire.
I represent a number of cities, and as long ago as 15 years in some of the cities that I represented, I've had individual council persons come to me and say, I want you to draft for this city to pass the most prohibitive, restrictive ordinance on firearms that is permissible under the law. And for one reason or another, that ordinance never was drafted or never was considered in any of the cities that I represent. But that indicates to me that, you know, good old conservative Oklahoma and Texas and this part of the country is going to have this kind of thing crop up.
Gun lobbies like the Oklahoma Rifle Association feel confident the U.S. Supreme Court will eventually uphold the individual's right to possess a pistol, but they caution that the final ruling on the matter could still be several years away. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
A lot of liquor will be poured tonight in various clubs, bars, and restaurants across the state. People everywhere will be drinking in the new year. Some prefer counting down the old year with friends and strangers in a public establishment. Others will simply have a quiet party at home, toasting happiness with loved ones. Tonight, drinking will seem like a great idea. But in the morning, it's a different story. Aspirin and water will be the popular drink of the day and probably the wisest. Pharmacist Dave McMillan has this advice.
The best thing is, like with any poisoning, is just dilution. Drink a lot of water or fluids, juices, Gatorade, anything that would help replenish the body's fluid.
What about a drug?
There's really not anything that will cure it. Aspirin is probably as good as any.
Tonight is the party night of all nights throughout the year, and although a lot of people have their own remedy on hand to help them feel better in the morning, the only sure cure for a hangover is not to drink. Have a happy new year. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
A dead crow on an Oklahoma City street is a fairly common sight. 50 dead crows on Oklahoma City streets isn't that uncommon either. But when the crows are arranged in the form of a 2-mile cross, running east and west on Britton Road and north and south on Western, that's uncommon. The crows were discovered this morning, carefully arranged along the two streets. Their heads were facing north. A lot of people are confused about the purpose of this display. We spent much of the morning on the telephone talking with educators, who have studied varying religions and cult groups. None of them have encountered a practice like this in any ritual, but several of them were disturbed by it, and authorities can only speculate on what it means. Charles Schnetzer, Action 4.
Traffic along Interstate 35 north of the US 66 junction still moves pretty well, despite some minor detours. But starting tomorrow, road closed signs will mark a 3.5-mile stretch of the freeway. The Transportation Department needs to reroute the traffic for 2 reasons: to allow construction crews to finish several overpasses, and to allow workers to tear up the old pavement. Highway engineers say this 7-mile stretch of Interstate 35 will be one of the safest superhighways in the country when it's finally completed 2 years from now. But in the meantime, the temporary route will only be safe as long as drivers keep a heads-up attitude and they obey these traffic warning signs.
If the motorist will watch the posted speed signs, if they'll watch the warning signs and so forth, slow down, pay a little more attention to their driving, it'll be even safer than before we closed it. If they don't, if they try to speed through there or not pay particular attention to their driving and so forth, it could be very hazardous. It's always best to kind of be alert in a construction zone, particularly this one.
Sign crews finished striping the access road today. Detour and warning signs should all be in place when the diversion of northbound traffic begins at 1 o'clock tomorrow. Southbound motorists will be detoured in a similar fashion within 60 days. Scott Wallace, Action 4 along Interstate 35 in northeast Oklahoma City.
Believers came from all over Oklahoma to sing, shout, and cheer for the Equal Rights Amendment. Hundreds of Oklahomans rallying together to show their support. The ralliers are calling this their shot in the arm, a little something to get the old campaign spirit bubbling. The mass met on the front steps of the Capitol. This being the first day of the legislative session, the ERAers wanted to be sure their voices were heard.
We have before us an opportunity to show the legislature that indeed the support for the Equal Rights Amendment in Oklahoma is great, that it cannot be denied, that you do represent thousands of people across this state who are supportive of this issue. We want you to go back home from here and make sure all those people write their legislators.
Some Oklahoma legislators have shown their support for the ERA. One rally spokesperson proudly proclaimed the support of Senator York, House Speaker Draper, and Governor Nye. For all Oklahoma supporters of the ERA, this rally was very important. This is the last chance for the Equal Rights Amendment to be passed in Oklahoma. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
This Canadian county farmer told me that this is the worst cotton crop he's ever produced. Stanley Burris has seen a lot of cotton in the past 30 years. The poor condition of this crop certainly can't be blamed on Burris's talents as a farmer, because he's an excellent farmer. Burris, his wife, and children were recently named Farm Bureau's Farm Family of the Year. Even though the Burris family was honored, Mother Nature played havoc with their cotton. Too much rain at the wrong time.
After we began to get our late rains, the cotton didn't go ahead and mature. So we'll take what Mother Nature gave us, and we're going to destroy this field of cotton without harvesting any of it.
Now, you raise this crop, but you're going to destroy it. Why?
Well, actually, because of the economics of it, with the cost of stripping and ginning. Cotton's costing about $40 a bale above seed this year, and the economics of it just won't allow us to do it. So it's cheaper to tear it up and start over.
Burris is disappointed about this crop, but he says he isn't complaining. He just accepts what nature does. While many farmers are pessimistic about agriculture in 1982 and the years to come, Burris says he still thinks the American farmer is going to have his day. Ben McCain, Action 4, Canadian County.
I'm Scott Wallace. The Piedmont Water Department had its hands full this weekend when a 6-inch water line busted. While workmen repaired that break, the town's 2 water storage tanks froze up. And in fact, some Piedmont residents are still without water service. Early today, Piedmont city workers thawed out the storage tanks enough to get the water flowing again. Officials decided to overfill the towers this time. They figured the circulating water won't freeze. So far, they've been right. With the city waterworks operating properly, the burden of unfreezing residential water meters and frozen pipes will fall on individual Piedmont homeowners. Water officials suggest residents heat up their frozen meters by placing a light bulb nearby. Pipes can be kept clear by leaving the faucet open a little. It'll raise your water bill, but at least you won't have to wait for warm weather when you want a drink of water. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Piedmont.
One of the biggest points in the Commission's favor is the Oil and Gas Conservation Fund. The fund was originated to help clean up surface areas around abandoned wells. Representative Cal Hobson says the fund has grown large enough now to finance the entire Corporation Commission.
My view is it's a policy decision that the Appropriations and Budget Committee should make and then recommend to the House and to the Senate one way or the other. The funds are there to do it. There will be opposition, I suspect. I know there will be. I know several members feel strongly that this is an incorrect policy decision, but we need to talk about it, evaluate it, and I would urge that we do it for the reasons that we have the money. The commission is generally all related to energy matters. If you're talking about public utilities, you're still talking about energy. So I don't think that statutorily we have much of a problem doing it, and if we do, it's not a major piece of work to get that statute changed.
Police were called to this house at 1411 Northeast 26th Street at about 2 o'clock this morning after an argument broke out between a man, his wife, and another woman. The names of those involved have not yet been released. Oklahoma City police officer Don Hall told Action 4 what officials think led to the man and woman both being cut with razors.
Married to this lady that shows up. Well, next thing we know, there's an argument that ensues between him and his wife, and supposedly he picks up a bottle and breaks it over her head, this young lady's head, and she gets a cut on her neck. She grabs and she finds a razor. And she said that all she knew, she started swinging. And, he left with his wife, didn't know where they went. That's when we got called and came out.
Police say the man involved has indicated he does not want to press any charges against the woman who allegedly cut him. The injured woman was expected to be treated and released from Presbyterian Hospital this morning. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Northeast Oklahoma City.
The National Transportation Safety Board has begun an investigation into the tragedy at Washington, D.C. When something of this magnitude occurs, it raises questions at all large airports. Could they respond effectively in a tragedy such as this? Officials at the Will Rogers World Airport say they could.
It appears to be a very complicated plan, but we have practiced and practiced and practiced. We have actually conducted actual simulated crashes of a large commercial airliner here at the airport. I'm sure the director plans to do more simulated crashes in order to look for the deficiencies in our plan and to look where we can correct it. We have confidence that we are going to get an acceptable and a very good response in the event of a tragedy such as what we saw at Washington yesterday.
This is how the Crash Fire Rescue Squad would respond in the event of an emergency. What you're watching is a bunker drill, a routine practice at the airport so the squads will be ready. The men rush to the crash scene in trucks, carrying water, foam, and other firefighting agents. These men have the best vehicles and the best equipment made. The casualties will be brought to makeshift field hospitals. This one at the fire station can hold up to 50 beds. There's another field hospital in the terminal capable of holding 150 beds. But officials hope these facilities won't be put to use. They've taken precautions in building the airport that will hopefully eliminate such tragedies. The airport is located 7 miles from downtown Oklahoma City, and immediately surrounding it is open field. The only commercial airline crash was in 1940, so the Will Rogers World Airport has a good record, and they hope to keep it that way. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
At the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce's first meeting of the year, Tom Heggy spoke to community leaders not as police chief, but the man chosen to make a major crime study for the chamber. Heggy will oversee a report on steps to alleviate crime in the city. The report will take about 2 years and cost about $220,000.
I think with all of us, we can make this city safe, and I think we can develop a plan that will be a model for the United States. Thank you very, very much.
Heggy has been involved in law enforcement 22 years. The 45-year-old Kansas native said it was time for a new challenge in his life. In an interview with Action 4, he said there have been drastic changes since he first started law enforcement.
The major changes have been in the education of the officers. 52% of the force has university degrees. I think the other change in the amount of training, where you're into computerization, innovations in investigation of crime, the type of schools that we've set up for not only our police, but police all the United States and other foreign countries, and some management innovations and how to patrol, particularly a land area this size.
He's held the job as police chief almost 5 years, and he says he's accomplished almost all his goals. His resignation will be effective February 15th. Ben McCain, Action 4 at Police Headquarters.